After the surface rumors of Rasheeda's alleged involvement with another man went wild, no one expected Kirk Frost to take things this far. He's not just questioning things privately. He's making bold statements distancing himself from Rasheeda. The tension between Kirk Frost and Rasheeda has just reached a whole new level, and fans are completely losing their minds. Just when we thought things couldn't get any crazier, Kirk dropped the bombshell that has everyone talking. Kirk is outright refusing to accept Rasheeda's baby. That's right, Kirk is standing his ground and claiming the child isn't his. The drama is unfolding in the most shocking way possible. Himself from Rasheeda and sending a clear message that the baby is not mine, and believe me, his response is creating a huge stir that is dividing their family and fan base like never before. However, what exactly happened? Did Rasheeda confess to something, or is Kirk simply trying to get out of this relationship? With accusations flying, heated arguments breaking out, and shocking revelations coming to light, things are getting out of control quickly. Stay tuned because the details we're about to full-blown war. Kirk Frost sat on the edge of the couch with his arms crossed tightly over his chest, his jaw clenched, and he looked at Rasheeda with a look of complete incredulity. The air between them was full of unspoken accusations, and despite Rasheeda's repeated attempts to calm him down, Kirk wasn't having any of it. "I don't know why you keep looking at me like that, Kirk." Rasheeda snapped her voice, trembling with frustration. She was trying to maintain her composure, but the stress was getting to her. "You're acting like I did something wrong when I haven't done a damn thing. Try to keep this family together." Rasheeda's stomach churned because this wasn't the man she fell in love with. Rather, it was someone colder, harder, and more distant than ever before. "You want to talk about family, but are you serious?" His eyes darkened with anger, a rage that had been simmering beneath the surface for a while. "You've been walking around here with a secret, and now you want me to just act like everything is fine?" "No, I can't do that this time." Rasheeda's heart pounded because she knew exactly what Kirk was talking about ever since the rumors of her alleged involvement with another man began to circulate. She had been attempting to do damage control, but the whispers kept getting louder. The more she attempted to reassure Kirk, the more he distanced himself from her. But the truth was that Kirk had already made up his mind and that nothing she could say seemed to change it. He said, "You can say whatever you want," and his eyes remained fixed on her. "But that baby that's not mine," he said, his voice low and sharp. And for a moment, Rasheeda's breath caught in her throat, making it impossible for her to respond. Does he really think that after everything they've been through over the years? Working on their marriage, the ups and downs, the cheating scandals that Kirk himself had caused, and now he was turning this around on her. "How dare you say that?" She finally choked out her voice, shaking with anger and disbelief. "Kirk wasn't backing down, and I'm tired of playing the fool, Rasheeda. I see how you've been acting sneakily on taking those calls when you think I'm not paying attention." His eyes narrowed as he continued, and he assumed that was her child. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Who had betrayed her on multiple occasions, the man she had forgiven for his adultery, the man she had supported when the world turned against him, and now he was accusing her of being unfaithful. The irony of it all was enough to make her sick. "You think you know," she spat, her voice rising with each word. "What the hell do you know, Kirk? What proof do you have? You just assume things because people are running their mouths." Her chest, heaving with every breath, tries to keep herself from bursting in front of him, but it's becoming more and more difficult to keep it all together. Kirk exhaled sharply, rubbing his hand over his face as if he was trying to keep himself. From losing it all, he was exhausted from the incessant arguments, the sleepless nights, and the doubts that gnawed at him every time he looked at Rasheeda. "You think I don't feel it, Rasheeda? A man knows when something doesn't add up, and this doesn't add up." Tears burnt at the back of Rasheeda's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wasn't about to break, not in front of him or anyone else. She had always been the one who kept everything together, even when it seemed like her world was still stood by you. And this is how you treat me. You just throw me out like trash, call me a liar, and call me unfaithful. Kirk sat there for a long time, staring at her, his face unreadable, and then, just when Rasheeda thought he might say something frequently, he'd get her with the most agonizing words. "But I have never questioned your kids before," he said coldly, his voice devoid of emotion. "But this one ain't mine." That was the tipping point. Rasheeda felt something inside her, and before she could stop herself, she grabbed the closest throw pillow and threw it at him with all her strength. "You bastard, you don't deserve me. You don't deserve the family." Kirk walked around the pillow with ease, his face unchanging, and he muttered to himself, "Maybe I don't." As they stood on the edge of something, breathing heavily, the room became tense. Rasheeda was about to storm out when KP dropped another B-show. "I want a paternity test." His voice was firm and steady. "And until I get those results, I'm not claiming anything." Rasheeda's breath hitched at a paternity test. Was he serious? She felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under her. She had always feared that one day Kirk's doubts and insecurities would pull them to this point, but she never really believed it would happen. Now here they were, but the look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. Oh, he was serious, and their marriage would never be the same again. Rasheeda turned her back to him, her body trembling with the weight of everything she had been through. She could feel his eyes burning into her, but she couldn't face him any longer. Everything they had built was falling apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Rasheeda stood frozen in place, her heart thumping against her ribs, amazed that she had just heard a paternity test after all these years and everything they had gone through together. Kirk was actually doubting the legitimacy of her child, and the weight of his words weighed down on her chest like a stone, making it nearly impossible for her to breathe. She turned back to him, feeling a mixture of pain and rage. "You really want to go there, Kirk, after all the dirt you've done?" Kirk sighed, shaking his head, and said, "After all the times you stepped out on me, you have the nerve to question me." "This isn't about the past. It's about right now, and right now I have doubts, real serious doubts," he said, rubbing his hands over his face in frustration. "Yet guess what? I had doubts too when you had a whole damn baby behind my back. But did I walk out? Did I make accusations? No, I stayed and worked through it because I believed in you, and this is what I get in return. You remind me of that every single day, and you never let me forget it. Now that the shoes are on the other foot, though, and you can't handle it," tears welled up in Rasheeda's eyes, but she wouldn't let them go. "No, Kirk, this isn't about me not being able to handle it. Rather, it's about you not trusting me. I grew up, Kirk, and I think the biggest mistake I made was assuming you did too." Kirk scoffed, rubbing his beard. "Yes, perhaps my biggest mistake was assuming you would always be honest with me." Kirk's jaw tensed, and for a moment he said nothing because, deep down, maybe she was right. Maybe he had been looking for an escape because their marriage had been rocky for a while, and this situation just put everything under a microscope. But he couldn't back down now, not when his gut was telling him that something wasn't right. "I'm not trying to push you away, Rasheeda," he finally said, his voice quieter now, "but I'm not going to be played either." Kirk held her gaze, her eyes blazing with emotion. "So that's what you think, that I'm just out here making you look like a damn fool? I think I need answers, and until I get them, I can't be 100 with you anymore." Rasheeda felt tense all over, knowing that Kirk could be stubborn, but this was a new level of cold, and it hurt more than she was willing to admit. "So what now, Kirk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You want to pack your bags? You want to leave? Because if you really believe this baby isn't yours, then what are we even doing here?" Kirk sighed, looking away for a moment before meeting her eyes again. "Staying," he said firmly, "but I'm not playing daddy until I know for sure." A new wave of rage swept through Rasheeda. "You're staying, Kirk. This isn't some damn hotel where you can check in and out whenever it suits you. This is our home, and that baby isn't just some question mark you get to ignore until it fits your damn narrative," Kirk shot back. "If you're so sure, then take the damn test." Rasheeda's lips parted. A sharp breath escaped as she stared at him incredulously. "We'll see in a few days." The house was a war zone, and they hardly spoke or even looked at each other. The tension was so high that even their friends noticed something was wrong. Carly Red was the first to call Rasheeda girl. "I've heard Kirk tell Reckless at the studio that he didn't think the baby was his. Tell me that isn't true." "You ruined us," she whispered, standing in the doorway of their bedroom the night before they were supposed to receive the call. When the phone rang the following morning, Kirk and Rasheeda were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. The phone was placed between them like a ticking time bomb, and Kirk hesitated before answering. Yes, the voice on the other end was calm and professional. "We have your results." The room seemed to shrink around them, and Kirk asked, "Dry your throat." There was a pause, and then the test confirmed that you are indeed the biological father. Kirk felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room, and Rasheeda just stared at him. The call ended, and for a brief moment, neither of them spoke. "Ben, you were happy." Then, Rasheeda whispered to Kirk, who opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He was wrong. He had doubted his own wife and his own family. And for that, I know that she cut him off standing up. And for what she said, she shook her head. Her voice was full of emotion, and now, I don't think we can ever be fixed. Kirk felt his heart sink because, for the first time in his life, he realized that he might have just Kirk wanted to follow her and pull her into his arms. But something inside him told him that it wasn't his place anymore. He had made this mess, and now he had to live with it. The next few days were unbearable. Rasheeda hardly spoke to him at all, and when she did, her words were clipped and emotionless, as if she were speaking to a robot. Kirk was drowning in guilt every time he looked at her, seeing the hurt in her eyes every time she walked past him. It was like a diver straight to his chest. He had been a fool, a damn fool, and the worst part was that he didn't know if he'd ever be able to fix this. The world outside their home wasn't any kinder the moment Kirk's doubts hit the internet. Social media had exploded, and Kirk Frost just proved he was worth a damn. "I don't know why you're still there, Rasheeda." She had said bluntly over FaceTime, "This isn't love, this is disrespect." Curry Red, who usually enjoys causing drama, had surprisingly taken Rashid as a side too. "Kirk is really out here embarrassing you again, girl. Rasheeda is stronger than me because I would have had that divorce lawyer on speed dial." Even Scrappy Kirk's own friend had called him out, so he said on the phone, shaking his head, "This is the mother of your kids. You really let the world think she stepped out on you. That's foul." Kirk had no defense because, in reality, everything was fine. One night, Kirk discovered Rasheeda sitting in the nursery rocking the baby in her arms. The soft glow of the nightlight cast shadows across her face, making her look even more worn out than she already was. He lingered in the doorway, hesitant. "Can I come in?" She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either, so that was enough. Bed for a while, neither of them said anything. The only sound was the soft rocking chair's creak, and the baby's soft breathing filled the room. At last, the baby's gentle breathing filled the room, and Rasheeda kept her eyes on him. "Then, don't you swallow hard? I need you to know how sorry I am." Her voice was quiet, but it cut deep. "Kirk, do you even realize what you did? You didn't just hurt me, you humiliated me. You let me cry myself to sleep every night, wondering why the man I loved didn't trust me." Kirk closed his eyes, guilt eating him alive. "I was afraid, Rasheeda. I let my insecurities get the better of me, and instead of talking to you," he let out a sharp exhale. "I messed up bad, Rash," and she shook her head, her grip tightening around the baby. "It's not just that you messed up, Kirk. It's about the fact that I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." Rasheeda, please, got up and carefully placed the baby in the cot. When she turned back to him, her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. "I love you, Kirk," she said. "I love you." Rasheeda exhaled sharply, gripping the foam tightly. Yes, this man really had the audacity to question me, Carly, after all the years of his. In the meantime, Kirk was having his own conversation with Scrappy, saying, "I'm not trying to be that dude," and Scrappy shook his head. "But you're sure about this? You really think she would do you like that?" Kirk exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I want to believe her, Scrap, but something isn't sitting right, and I'm not about to be out here raising my voice." "You need to check him, Rasheeda. You are not no damn side chick. You're his wife." As they pulled into the parking lot, Rasheeda said, "I hear you, but you gotta ask yourself if you're wrong, ready to deal with the fallout Kirk." He didn't respond because, deep down, he knew that if he had doubted Rasheeda for nothing, he might lose her forever. The day of the test arrived sooner than either of them had anticipated, and they hardly spoke on the way to the clinic. Kirk tapped his foot nervously against the floor, and Rasheeda sat with her arms crossed, staring out the window. "My last chance to back out," she said, and Kirk tapped his foot nervously against the floor. The clinic smelt like antiseptic and cold air, an uncomfortable combination that only made the tension between them worse. Rasheeda sat stiffly in the waiting area, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her nails digging into her skin. Kirk sat beside her, his leg bouncing anxiously, his face set in stone. They were led into a private room where a doctor was already waiting. The doctor was an older man, his face kind but professional, his eyes flicking between the two of them as if he could sense the war brewing beneath their skin. "So, we're here for a paternity test." The doctor said, his tone neutral. "Yes, Kirk," he said, his voice gruff. "We need answers." Rasheeda exhaled sharply through her nose but didn't say a word. The doctor nodded and pulled on a pair of gloves. "Okay, the procedure is straightforward. We'll take a cheek swab from each of you and a sample from the baby. The results should be ready in a few days." Rasheeda's jaw tightened for a few more nights of this hell of sleeping next to a man who believed she was lying and acting like everything was normal when, in fact, their marriage was in ruins. The test only took a few minutes, and the doctor took the swabs, labeled them, and told them that the results would be expedited. The ride home was as quiet as the one there, and Rasheeda gazed out the window. When they finally pulled into the driveway, and her reflection looked just as tired as she did, Kirk gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. "You better hope you're right," she said quietly, her voice laced with anger so deep it felt like a knife to the chest. Kirk sighed and rubbed his temple, but Rasheeda snapped, turning to face him. "You made your choice, you chose to doubt me, so now you better pray that you wasn't wrong, because if you were," she said, shaking her head and laughing bitterly. "You and I are done." Kirk flinched under the weight of her words, and Rasheeda, "Don't do that." For the next few days, things only got worse. Rasheeda hardly spoke to Kirk, only interacting when necessary. When she wasn't in their bedroom, she was rocking the baby to sleep and whispering quietly that everything would be okay. Kirk, on the other hand, felt like a prisoner in his own house, the guilt eating him alive. But at the same time, the doubt was still gnawing at the back of his mind. He tried to divert his attention by going to the studio, but even there, he worm-had spread, man. "What the hell are you doing?" Stevie asked, shaking his head as he leaned against the mixing board. Kirk rubbed his face and exhaled heavily. "You don't get it, man," Stevie said, "but I do." He shot back, acting as though you didn't know the woman you married, Rasheeda. "She's not a groupie, man, she held you down, and now he's treating her like some random chick off the street." Kirk clenched his jaw. "What happens when the results come back and prove you wrong?" Stevie asked, raising an eyebrow. Kirk didn't respond because, deep down, he wasn't sure he was, and Rasheeda was coping with her own storm. She had kept quiet about it, trying to handle it in private, but Carly's mouth was big, and within days, social media was ablaze with people questioning Rasheeda's baby. After all he did, the disrespect is that Kirk Frost is trending, and not in a good way. The backlash was swift, and the people who had previously defended Kirk were now driving him mercilessly. Rasheeda watched the chaos unfold from her phone, her stomach turning, and she detested the fact that everyone could see their business. She said, "I don't even know if I can ever look at you the same way again." Shaking, Kirk swallowed hard. "Baby, listen," wiping away a tear. "Baby, oh now I'm baby. Now you want to play the loving husband." Kirk stood up, stepping towards them. "The baby to my mom's for a few days." Kirk's stomach dropped. Then she grabbed the diaper bag from the corner of the room and slung it over her shoulder. "I just need time to think and breathe, Rasheeda." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, saying, "Don't leave like this. Let's talk. There's nothing left to say." Kirk walked past him out of the nursery, down the stairs, desperation clawing at his throat at the door. She turned around one last time, and Kirk stood there, staring at the door, his chest tightening with each second that went by. He had fought for years to keep this marriage together, but now he wasn't sure if he had lost Rasheeda for good. Kirk and Rasheeda have been through it all, but this could be the tipping point. After all, can their marriage even withstand this level of betrayal? Will Rasheeda ever forgive Kirk, or will this be the moment she leaves for good? And let's not forget the baby in the middle of all of this. Will Kirk step up and put things right, or is this the start of a whole new drama? The story is far from over, and you already know that there will be a lot of opinions about it, so we want to hear from you. Do you think Kirk deserves another chance? Should Rasheeda forgive him, or is it time for her to move on? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, as we know you will have opinions. If you want to be updated on every development in this crazy situation, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications because, trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Moreover, don't forget to like this video if you're as shocked by all the drama as we are. The narrative is only beginning.